Mandate.
What's up, fam? Welcome to Mandate, where we talk about issues pertaining to our people and in particular to our men. This platform is about having open tala noa around certain issues, but also look at ways where we can refine who we are as men, unlock our true potential, and take charge of our lives. My name is Charles, and I'm co-host with my brother here, Bettia Wilson, aka Mad Messenger. And we're in for an awesome night. And I just want to give it over to my brother.
Awesome. Thank you, Charles, for that. Hey, we are in for a very great night tonight. We have a great guest tonight, and so we're very privileged and honored to have him tonight. So just before we kind of formally introduce our guest, he uses one of the kind of, I guess you could say, one of the more popular Samoan proverbs. And the proverb is this: "O le ala I le pule o le tautua," which translated in English means the pathway to leadership is through service. And this Samoan proverb has helped shape him, his passion and his purpose. He is proud to be a South Auckland alumnus. The leadership seed was planted early in his schooling years, firstly through sporting teams and later eventuated in leading with purpose with his role as head boy of Papatoetoe High School. He knew then the power of a positive example and the strength of education. Leaving high school, he knew his calling was to help others and influence change. His university years were used to become a teacher, and teaching became a big and still is a big part of his life. And teaching in schools in South Auckland and primary schools, intermediate and secondary schools. The power of influencing a young mind to be the best version of themselves is something he wanted to emphasize. In schools, there are students that have no father figures, and by default, you become that, which is why he felt the responsibility of teaching with purpose. During his role as deputy principal at Hill Park Primary, he was also presented an opportunity to work at Auckland Rugby. This is where he is currently, where he's running an education program for the next generation coming through, helping to instill life skills and creating pathways that doesn't necessarily involve rugby. Teaching is, he says, teaching is not his profession, it is his passion. And advocating for the minority voice and uplifting our youth is his purpose. And education in the academic and life sense is important for growth. Also noteworthy achievements. Both his parents hail from the beautiful island, known to us as the sacred center, the pride of the Pacific, the pearl of the Pacific, the heart of the Pacific, Samoa. And also he also has one sibling, a sister. He's married to the lovely Maylene for 14 years. He is the first Pacifica head prefect for Papatoetoe High School, student body president for Auckland Teachers College, established a Samoan bilingual unit, Apolima, at Waimahia, formerly known as Weymouth Intermediate. He's also a senior teacher at Weymouth Intermediate, DP at Beta Intermediate, also DP at Hill Park School, Auckland Rugby, coach, educator, and mentor, event logistics for the Blues, All Blacks in Samoa at Eden Park, and 20 plus years of teaching and mentoring. Mā lora soi fua mō malangi mama, kia ora koutou katoa, no mai, haere mai, welcome to the show. Danny, Gautusa.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Danny. Hey, Danny. Eddie, you gonna do that thing real quick, Charles? Or you want me to just?
No, you keep it going.
Oh, sweet as sorry, Danny. Just because we always ask our guests. Obviously, we're still in lockdown, we're still level 3. Just very quickly, how have you been in terms of this lockdown? Has there been any difference? But we want to ask you, how have you been mentally this time around?
If I'm honest, this time around was a bit tricky. But I think it's because of the length of time that we've had in comparison to the previous lockdown. But it's been a blessing in disguise too. I think the silver lining's been having that time with family, especially with my wife as well. So that's been a real big plus. And I guess for lockdown, it's always a good reset button to reassess things. So yeah, no, it's been good. I don't know what or when the end time is for this lockdown, but it's just grateful every day to wake up and see what challenges lie ahead. So yeah, it's okay.
So, that's me. That's cool too. Oh man, it's awesome to meet you, brother. And thank you for being on our platform. I guess before we get started, I just wanted to do some rapid fire questions. But before that, because there'll be many that tune in, millions of viewers around the world, really interested to know more about who we have on tonight. So are you able just to give us just a rundown of who you are and what you're passionate about?
Awesome. Maru lava soifo, matalangi ma. Tai lava lo sunga Petia, me soifo lo sunga Charles, morene amomo. To help everyone, thank you, Charles. Be a bit about myself. Like many other men, a young man that grew up in South Auckland, born and bred. Come from generation of having Samoan born parents as well. Probably one of the rare small Samoan families, only having my sister and I. Schooled in South Auckland, went on to uni, decided to become a teacher, which was something that I thought I would only do for a few years, but I'm still doing that to this day. The classroom looks a bit different. We're now at Auckland Rugby, going on at Auckland Rugby, running an education program for our next generation of youth coming through, whether it be rugby. I think the emphasis around that is around life skills and building a career pathway that's not necessarily a sport to do that. Happily married to my darling wife, Maylene, for 14 years, often known as the boss, depending on what day of the week it is. But yeah, truly grateful for her as well. Still living in South Auckland too, which is always a big plus as well. And I guess when you think about South Auckland, it's where the sun always shines. So.
Yes. Any children also?
No, but actually, now that you think about it, we had a daughter who passed.
Okay, sorry to hear also.
Yeah. It's probably an opportunity to share.
Yeah, hard up.
So, just the one daughter, Eleanor, who sadly passed a few years back.
Cool. Oh, sure. So, thank you for sharing that, and we'll probably come back and sort of talk about that period if you want to. But yeah, I thought it would be cool just to do some rapid fire questions also. And just the first thing you think of, come to mind, and then we'll just go from there. So first one is rugby or league?
It's rugby. Yeah, I'm in the picture. It's definitely rugby.
Texting or calling?
Calling.
Yeah. Why?
Because often when I send a text, it often gets misunderstood. And then you don't hear from the person again.
Vaccinated or unvaccinated?
Double vaccinated.
Favorite go-to takeaway?
Ooh, pork and rice.
Pork and rice. Where's the place?
Yummy King, Great South Road, Manurewa.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Favorite subject at school?
It would have to be English.
Least favorite subject at school?
Science.
Worst job you've ever had?
Ooh. Without revealing too much, probably worst job.
Which school was it?
Okay. Worst job, not that I got paid for it, but it was probably something that my parents told me to do when you're trying to sleep and they wake you up and you have to do those things.
Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. Best and worst thing about being a man?
Best thing about being a man for me is just given the opportunity to express love in a different way. Yeah. Worst thing about being a man, cutting yourself when you're shaving. I don't know. It's something that's, yeah.
Where? Nah, jokes. Don't worry about that. What's your favorite hot drink?
I'm not really a hot drinker, but if it had to be anything, it'd be Milo.
Okay, cool. When are you most productive?
When I'm showing obedience to my wife.
Who is your inspiration and why?
Definitely my mum. Yeah, my mum's a big inspiration to me. Father passed when I was 17, 18. So mum took on that role and modeled everything from service, love, education, the works. I still does it today, even though in my 40s, when mum calls, no hesitation to be there.
That's cool. Summer or winter?
Winter. Yeah, I'm a big winter fan.
You love them snuggles, eh?
Yes.
How do you start your day?
Recently, it's been going for a run.
Oh, cool. That seems to be a common thing. Must be when we hit our 30s, eh? We must like running.
Yeah, and I'm not even a runner myself, really.
Cool. Let's say you can turn back time and you're sitting down with a young 18-year-old Danny. What advice would you give him?
What was I doing when I was 18? My advice would be have no fear. Have no fear.
What scares you?
What scares me is probably losing family. Yeah.
That's me. And what's something that you enjoy doing?
Running, if I'm honest, because I'm not a runner.
Okay, cool.
It was a lockdown kind of thing. I'm with a really cool group of people too that had this whole training buzz, and then running just became a thing now. It's a good outlet for me to get out there and run.
Me. No, that's cool. Oh, and just what's one of the most challenging things about lockdown?
It's not really having that true connection with people.
That's cool. Oh, sure. Also, thanks for sharing. Thanks for answering them questions. Gave me a fair idea of who Danny is. That's cool.
Sure, rapid fire. That's cool. Awesome. Sorry, Danny. Just worried because I wanted to ask you because I love that the proverb, and you were saying in your bio that it was one of the Samoan proverb was the one that kind of really helped you and shaped you in terms of your passion and your purpose. Can you tell us just a little bit what happened? Was it something like a stirring inside you, or was it just something that you just knew that mum and dad instilled in you, and just felt like it was the right thing to do, just in terms of passion, in terms of education, and so forth? If you can tell us a little bit about that, Danny, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I've always been surrounded by strong service leadership figures. Being my mum, her sisters, my dad, they always served. They always served and did that with humility, and whenever people needed things, they knew they could count on them, and look at my parents, which I'm sure for other parents as well, they do that without wanting any return as well. So I knew that for me, serving was important. So when I went through schooling, I always tried to be a good friend. I tried to be a good person to others. If someone needed something, that I could be someone they could talk to, lean on. And then that kind of grew into what job could I do to show that. And that led me to teaching, because I knew that being able to teach our children and being able to model those service behaviors, that they're able to do that as well. So I wanted to, without sounding too cliche, I wanted to have an impact on our youth as well. Only because when you look around at the time, there's a lot of different distractions, different misconceptions, different stereotypes, that are around, and looking at what our youth go through today, it's a whole different ballgame. So if you could plant something in them to give them some tools, that was more me, and that's just evolved from there, where if anything, service is a big thing as well. I think at the same time, it's when you serve humbly, it's to others, not to confuse humility with being passive.
Mm. Because I wanted to ask you that as well, Danny. I know that obviously with our culture or cultural roots in terms of being Samoan or Pacific Islander, people think, and I think we're kind of raised something that's like embedded in us, Danny, like to serve, but also the humility. But also I think there's a fine line, like you just said, there's a fine line between being passive and actually serving and still being assertive. Like, how did you have to work out the difference when you kind of growing up as a youngster, as a man? How did you kind of maneuver yourself in terms of passive or chop and change, passive versus leadership, assertiveness?
I firstly looked at my mum. My mum was in a field that there weren't many people that had the same color skin as her, so she had to go through that workplace, be in that system, even though that she knew that she was going to be challenged, had to assert herself in that space, but still maintain her core values. And that was an example that I took as well. Because when you go into teaching, you get quite a few challenges when you're there. If I go back to my schooling days, when I went from intermediate school to high school, so I went from Clover Park Intermediate to Papatoetoe High School. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, cool, Clover Park, everyone looks like me. Went to Papatoetoe, there's only like a handful of us that are there. And if I think about our first class that we had, I think it was third form French. And I'm thinking, why does everyone sound as if they've actually done this before? And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, you're either going to follow the crowd and just hide, or you're going to face that and take that challenge on board. And sometimes you're trying to find your own voice too, being comfortable with that as well.
Wow. Were you always, because that was quite a young age where you noticed the difference, like were you aware, like being a minority, and how did that make you feel?
Yeah, I knew quite early. I knew quite early because my first sport was cricket.
Oh, wow.
I like thinking, what's not cricket, but it was actually cricket. And I remember my dad taking me down to the cricket nets.
Nice.
And I looked down, cool, jumped in, I looked at all the boys, I went, no one looks like me. Everyone's got pads and I've got nothing. And to do that. So yeah, being in amongst them, it was just different. It was just different to have different people because it was the club that I went to, quite a few Europeans that were there, and they were cool too, but you just already knew at that young age, and I was about 8 or 9.
Wow.
It was it was a bit different.
And being aware of that and just going through Papatoetoe High into your senior years, did you feel out of place, or were there moments where you felt like you had to change or talk a certain way or be a certain way, change your behavior?
It was different because you traveled 2 journeys. I know for me, I did. So I came from a school where there were many of us to a school where there were not many of us.
Yeah.
And going into the high school, you still had people who looked like us, but were from a different school as well. So you're trying to combat people that don't look like you, and then you're trying to combat your relationships with people that did look like you as well. Because all of the PIs that were at Papatoetoe High School at the time either went to Papatoetoe Intermediate or another school, and majority of them came from Papatoetoe Intermediate.
So you came from Clover Park.
Wow. Yeah, Clover Park is us, man.
Yeah, that's all of us. That's cool. Mr. Sam, was Mr. Sam there?
Yeah, Mr. Sam was there. Yeah.
Did you ever get a hiding from him?
No, I did his matrix. No.
So what area were you in, Daddy? You were
I was in Area 2, Kimiora.
Area 2, yeah. Kimiora, yeah, no, awesome, man. I got some fun memories of Clover Park.
Yeah, shout out to Luminati. Area 3.
Was Area 2 like what? Kimiora?
Kimiora.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So, sorry.
Sorry, before Pete asks this question, apparently the Samoans that went to other areas other than Luminati, they only went there to follow the girls. So you used to went to follow the girls that shook their hips, eh? No?
No. Not me, no.
Okay. Not me. Oh no. Sorry, Danny, because you said you're from Clover Park and then you went to Papatoetoe High, and so tell us about it, because you from Papatoetoe High you end up being the head boy, and you said in your bio that you were the first ever Pacifica person to be a head boy. Oh, and so I'm wondering, bro, there must have been a massive shift that you said you had to kind of like, I don't know if assimilate is the right word, into the different cultures, and you say there was a handful of islanders, and yet somehow you succeed and you able to mix and mingle with these students, different cultures, and you end up being the head boy also. And so tell us how did that come up? How did that come about? The whole head boy and doing really well. Obviously, you did really smart cookie. So you would have done. So tell us about how that eventuated also.
Yeah, just going through Papatoetoe and going through. See, the way they had their classes at that time was you were streamed in a way. So you, depending on what you had chosen, I guess from an intermediate, and they had tested you, you were put into streamed classes. So the higher up you were, that's the class you were in. So I was fortunate enough to be in some of those classes and just develop some really good relationships with, I guess, the students at the time. I was quite comfortable in my skin being at school, so I wasn't really afraid of being Samoan or being Pacific Island over there. And I guess as the years progressed, I found myself being in some sports teams and some extracurricular activities. I had a dean at the time, Vaughan Quio. So he later he was a former head boy of Papatoetoe High School, and then is the current principal of Papatoetoe High School at the moment. So he was a good figure to bounce a few things off. He was one that really believed in my leadership capabilities when I was in year 12, form 6 at the time. Yeah, and then just really encouraged me. I guess when you are really good with, if you're really good to people, they really show that love back to you as well. And I was quite fortunate in my cohort that a really good group of friends that supported me as well. Managed to get the respect of the teachers too. And at the time, I didn't know I was the only Pacific or first Pacific head prefect at the time. And it wasn't until when I got announced, and then the next day, came to school, and I can remember all the juniors, all the third formers and fourth formers just running up to me, saying congratulations, awesome, really, really happy. And it was that time I thought, man, it is quite significant. And when I look back at it now, I'm quite proud of that, but I'm more proud of all the Pacific leaders that have come through since then. Because that's important. It's important that, and I think I've shared this before, that it's important being a gatekeeper that opens the door, but just don't stand in the way. Okay, let them come through. Come through.
It's good, man.
That's so cool. Hey, also, because you shared that mom's inspiration, and you during that time you would have graduated from high school, and you would have lost dad during that period. Am I correct?
Yes, it was. But yeah, one of my first year of teachers college. First year.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was it like for you at that time, trying to deal with that grief and continue to like just pursue this the studies that was in front of you?
Yeah, it was tough initially, because in those times where, man, I need to get some counsel. You want to look to your dad. So my dad was living in Samoa at the time. So at the time I was on a practicum? Was I teaching practicum? I remember flying over there and seeing him. So I hadn't seen him for about 3 to 4 years, because he had moved over there.
Okay.
So the big burly man that I was used to seeing, when I saw him, when I went to Samoa at that time, he was frail. He was frail, skinny man, and that blew me away. So I ended up staying in Samoa over that period for him, for his last few weeks as well. So when he had passed, I was there with him to do that. So it was trying to deal with that, then having to come back to New Zealand, and then having to see what life was going to look like. Thankful to my sister and my mum at the time, who really put some really good, strong pillars for me. Didn't let me, didn't let me go wayward, if anything. Always kept my focus on things. And then, I know that when I'd come back, went back into uni and had a bit more purpose into doing things, because I knew then my dad wasn't going to be at my wedding, wasn't going to be at my 21st, wasn't going to be there to congratulate me, when I graduate or do all those milestones. But if I could do anything, it was to fulfill those things, having him in mind, and doing that as well. So I can remember when I got married, and just think of my dad, when I was giving my speech, I could feel myself choking up, and it was only because he wasn't there. He wasn't there to see this for him as well. So fast forward to being into teaching, some of our kids go through that. Some of our friends go through that. That's why it's important to be a good father figure where you can. Like I lost a child, but in teaching, you've got 6 million to do that as well.
Far out. Thanks for sharing that also. And I think just want to pause for a bit, because mandate, we often talk about men issues and we get men to really influence other men, but we just want to honor our mothers, because for Pacifica families, our mothers are, and our women in our lives are really strong pillars. And so we just want to honor all our moms, and thank you for sharing your story also. Just want to honor especially all our single moms out there. They have to play dual roles, because they really shape who we are as men. And I think we need to celebrate that more, and really share that more especially on this platform. So thank you also.
No, and I think that's important too, because we never underestimate and undertalk the superpowers of a single mum, single parent. Because they take that on board, and being single mothers or a single dad, they don't show that emotion all the time.
True.
For their children.
Wow.
So, yeah, a real big tautoko to our single mums and our single parents as well. They do an amazing job.
Wow, that's so you're spot on, Danny. Sorry, Danny, it just thank you for sharing that first and foremost, but also sorry to hear about Dad, and and you mentioned it just a few seconds ago, in terms of other young men that you've taught in the schools and father figures or who have no father figures. How did you? And you already mentioned your sister and your mom being a big part and being the pillars of assisting you and helping you. But how did you, to where you are right now, how did you, in terms of mentally, how did you kind of refine, or how did you kind of navigate your way? Like you said, you could have went wayward, or there could have been a crossroads, we could have went that way, but you end up still pursuing a great avenue. And so how did, like for you mentally, how did you have to refine and chop and change and really prepare yourself?
I think I had to challenge myself. I had to set myself quite a few goals. I was always goal driven. And I knew that when I had finished high school, that I needed to move on to something. So I didn't want to leave high school and go into nothing, because that's when you start getting into that rabbit hole of trying to decide. And when you do that, you end up being in the same place for a while, end up in that rut. I didn't want to do that as well. I wanted to make sure that I was able to position myself, put myself in a place to help others. And if I could do that, I needed to make sure that I was educating myself, whether it be through going to uni or educating myself in life as well. Because in order for you to help someone, you got to make sure that you are 100 too.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Also, outside of your mom and your sister being those two strong pillars that helped you through those tough times, did you have was there anyone else that was in your life, or did you have a circle of friends or a group of guys that you could really turn to?
At that time, I probably had two groups that kind of evolved. The first was I can remember working at Rainbow's End. And there were some brothers that were there that we really gravitated to as well towards each other, Lee being one of them. So we formed a connection and were able to chat. I think for us, it's quite common that our connection is through mocking each other and having the jokes, and then 15 years later, it's the same story, but a different version. And then I had some really good sisters, really good friends. They were my intermediate friends who I still connect with today. So we had a Zoom probably about a couple of days ago. And this is like 30 plus years of friendship.
Wow.
That we're still connecting as well. So yeah, it was important to have that outlet as well. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So you go on from uni, you become a teacher, and you're involved in education. Obviously, you want to give back to these young people. Like, what continues you to, like, what inspired you during that time to really teach? What's going through your motivation behind it?
I guess when you teach in an area of South Auckland, you only have to look around about what is around them, and a large part of that is not their fault. It's they have no control over that. So when I went into teaching and I went to Weymouth Intermediate, it wasn't actually a school that I thought I would be at. Being an Otara boy, I wanted to go to the Otara schools, but there was a teacher there at the time who was just finishing, and he actually came to my house He said to me, man, I'm going to be leaving. I know you're just coming out of teachers college. Do you want a job? You know, I'm thinking, what's the job? And then a couple of days later, had an interview with the principal. A day later, yeah, got the job and took over his teaching position over there. And then me being in teaching, I thought it would only last about 2 to 3 years. I ended up being at Weymouth for about 9 years.
Wow.
To do that. And one of the funny stories I always have with Weymouth Intermediate is that when you're a teacher, you have duty. When you have duty areas. So it's either around a school or a playground, or it's out on the field. My duty area for some of the time was at the Clendon Shopping Centre. And I'm thinking, why are you at the shopping centre? At the time, you know, when kids get restless, they want to have a rumble over here, rumble over there, so they look at you and go, okay, you can go have your duty over there. All those experiences you have with your well, man. So always tried, like I still get a buzz, so I went full circle with that. So I started off in Manurewa, went around to other schools and came back to Manurewa. And that was even living wise as well. So now when I go out to Clendon Shopping Centre, I still get the, oh, hey, sir. And you're like 30 years old. You know?
Man, there's a true testament of who you are, Danny. Well, because when was the last year at what's it called now?
Waimahia?
Yeah, Waimahia, yeah. When was your last year?
It would have been 2009. I think it was even 2009. And then I went from there to become DP at Beta.
Wow.
Yeah, from there to 2013. Then went to Santa Maria College.
Wow.
Santa Maria College to Hill Park Primary, and then Hill Park to Auckland Rugby.
Wow.
Wow.
So, yeah, because I need to ask you, because what was the shift? Like, obviously, the Auckland Rugby, obviously, you're still kind of teaching and education. But what was the shift in terms of, like, okay, just teaching in the classroom or being a DP, and now you're Auckland Rugby? Was there like how did the opportunity come about?
There's a good man. His name's Gary Peach. He was running the program at Auckland Rugby at the time, and he was finishing up. When I was at Hill Park Primary, loved the school. You know, great staff, great students, and when that opportunity had come up, I actually asked myself, man, is it worth a change? Because I'd been in leadership for a while now, and what I didn't want was to be a leader that was flat. I don't want to be a leader that was just going through the motion. Could I make the shift, recharge the batteries, and then eventually could go back into teaching, but wanted to take that risk on pursuing another challenge. There were still elements of teaching, but it was something totally different. So it was term 2 going into term 3. Term 2, I was at Hill Park Primary. Term 3, I was at Auckland Rugby.
Wow.
It was quite a change to do that.
Was it a big transition, or was it just kind of fit like a glove? You just went in there. It was just easy transition. Yeah,
the transition was smooth. My colleague right now, Shirley Simon, really made it easy for me to come through, and because I had rugby as a background as well, that was a good transition too. But when you're teaching, you kind of adapt where you can into whatever the environment is. So that was quite good.
Also, when I was doing some research on you, and I put your name on Google, and some images came up, and one of the images I saw, you're quite bigger than how you are now. So I was wondering, like, because man, I'm looking at you now, I thought it was The Rock. So let's talk about your health journeys. Yeah, talk about, obviously you've gone on a health journey.
It's funny how it came about. So originally it came about with challenges, like 6-week challenge. Like I'm not my hands up, I'm not a fan of them because it required you having to do work. But when your wife says, we're going to do a challenge, it's like, oh, I'm in there. That's us. Yeah, so that challenge, and I thought to myself, if I'm going to do the 6-week challenge, don't make it 6 weeks. It's got to be a lifestyle change, either all in or why even bother doing it.
Yeah.
At the same time, a real good group of brothers and a sister at work were on a training kind of journey themselves. So we just did like simple workouts. Like my original training was like walking. I would just walk. That's all I could do, just walk, and then that led to a jog, and then that led to lockdown, which gave me time. So this is gonna sound real. So September, I ran 5Ks a day for 30 days.
Wow.
I challenged myself to do that because I started to pick it up, and it's October now, so I'm doing 10Ks a day.
Wow.
Oh
But
man.
honestly, I'm not a runner. I'm far from being a runner. It's just a good way for me because I do it in the morning because it's a difficult thing to do. And if I can get the most difficult thing to do at the start of my day and get it done and dusted, the rest of the day will be a breeze.
Wow. So you've just only lost all that weight this year during lockdown?
Yeah, it's only been this year. I think I was, I was about 124, 126 at the start.
Wow, no way.
Yeah, and I think, it's a shame even saying it. I think I'm about 98, 99.
Wow. What
That's cool.
That's awesome.
So do you feel much more, I don't know, holistically? How does it feel? Like, do you feel more, you got more energy and...
Yeah, definitely have more energy, which is a good thing for me. Because when you have more energy, more of you to give,
That's cool.
things as well. So yeah, and I know many people out there are on a similar journey as well, which is awesome. It's awesome to see when I see others doing it as well. So, yeah, so if anything, yeah, get active out there.
Yeah, I don't.
Mind, body, and soul, man.
Wow.
Sorry, also, I know this is like a sort of like a heavy topic, and it's something you sort of want to ask you about. And you don't have to go there if you don't have to, but you talked about you guys had a daughter and just her passing. You able to share about just about that time?
Yeah, and I think it's something that I don't often talk about, but I think it's important, not just for everyone that could be listening, but for me as well. So in 2009, my wife and I were to have a baby girl, and she had passed at the time as a young one, and that was probably one of the most challenging times as well. My wife was a very strong woman, and her belief systems really came to the forefront, kind of helped me through that time of losing her. And even to this day, there are still moments of, man, what if? How could things have been to do that? And it kind of really pushed me to ensure that I make the most of the time that I have with the people that I care about, the people that I love, but more so do the best that I can to be a good example too. So everything that I do is always, for my daughter and my family as well. It's always a driving point. Because if you were to meet me off the street, you're probably, man, yep, this guy, man, yep, really great to talk to, always happy persona. But then when they hear all these things, they go, man, if you went through all of that, you actually went through all of that as well. But yeah, no, it's Father's Day is always tough for me, but it's also a good time for me to reflect upon how I can be.
Wow.
Because, others will tell you how you could be, but you only know how you should be.
That's powerful.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing also. And just for others that are that may have had the same experience or going through the experience, or even for those who are supporting someone that's going through the experience, what are some advice you would have for people going through the experience, and some advice for people trying to support? Because, sometimes people support and they say the wrong thing. Sometimes you don't want the support, but got any advice also?
Yeah, I know everyone's situation will be different. I think if you're the supporting person, it's just being present, being there, and just to gauge upon how they are, because they will, and others will react in a certain way. But you being there, even if it's just being a sounding board, to be there, because if you're going to vent, you don't really need to know all the answers or have the best counsel. But just be there to do it. And if you are going through a similar experience, allow time for yourself. There's no timeline on grief. There's no timeline on how you need to be, like in 5-10 years' time. Yep, you'll be over it and you'll be done.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. And it's just being able to understand that too, as well. Talking about it is a real big thing as well. For me, I'm a private person and will only open up to certain people that I trust. But my wife's really been a good supporting network about being able to talk about it. That's why even talking about it here on this platform, that a lot of people are going to see is something different. But I think it's important too as well, because sometimes healing comes through talking. Being able to do that as well. So yeah, that's...
Wow, no, that's powerful, Danny. Yes, so sorry to hear about your daughter. And kudos to your wife as well, Maylene. You said she was like a tower of strength, also, and I can't imagine how that would feel, and for you to even share that. And like you said, you're a private person. You don't really kind of talk about these things to other men. I'm pretty sure the men who are watching this or who will watch this will appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability. Also, just wondering as well, and I totally agree. You're saying that. People say, the saying that the time will heal, but I totally agree. It's just being able to go through that, and it will just always be there. Just that pain. And so, how, like in terms of you as a man, how did you like deal with that? Like actually. Like you said, you had your wife; she was strong. But for you internally, how was it all for you? Like, just if you could tell us like a little bit of how you were was it just rage at the beginning? Was it just, or was it just?
There were a lot of questions around, man, kind of what was it me? What did I do? What is it? I'm living a good life. I'm happy. I've done all the right things. How can this happen? And then you begin to realize that there are some things that are beyond your own control. Having a strong belief system as well, and a faith in our Heavenly Father too, helps shape your thinking and your understanding and your perspective as well. Also, having the courage to not allow yourself to fall heavy. Because sometimes there are going to be people that won't catch you, and that's through no fault of their own. It's the people that just don't know. Because if you're private, you'll fall. And there's so many people out there that will want to help out and want to share, but you've got to open up your doors into doing that as well. I also think going through that is being able to see what it is for you, what is it for you to move on, and what things that you need to ask yourself to do that. Because everyone's going to tell you and give you all of these different bits of advice, but no one walks in your shoes. Yeah, no one walks in your shoes and walks your journey as well. So you got to ask yourself and challenge yourself, what is it going to be like for you? Are you going to be someone that's going to take that grief and have that overcome you and let it dictate your life, or you're going to be someone that's going to channel that into an area where you know that you can be a lot more stronger, a lot more productive and beneficial. So it's important for me going through that my role as a husband, I need to be a husband that's going to be there for my wife. I can't just rely on just myself and wallow in self-pity. I've got to really challenge myself to do that as well. And if I'm a person that's in a position of influence, whether it be a teacher, if my words are being spoken to these young ones, are my actions the same as what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so awesome, brother. Just really inspired by just your self-resilience and just the internal motivation that you've had just to get through those situations. Would you say also that your one of your most darkest times?
Yes, yeah, it would be. It would, yeah, definitely, would be. Because when I look back at it, I can remember it would have been a couple of days before her funeral. I was just sitting there and thinking, man, I don't really see the light at the end of the tunnel. Oh man, I just man, I couldn't see past tomorrow. I was like, man, this isn't how life should be.
Wow.
No, yeah, there isn't how life should be. Not that I was going to do anything drastic, but it was just the feeling that you had, like you couldn't see past the next day. Someone who was goal driven and would would set these things in place. There was just that time and period where just, man, just get through this next 30 seconds. Just get this next minute to do that.
Wow.
And if you can, then you're actually going to be all right.
That's awesome. Thanks also. And in hindsight, having this period where you've walked through this journey, what is your encouragement for someone that might be dealing with a tragic loss right now that can't see past tomorrow or can't see past the next hour or minute?
Yeah, my encouragement would be to keep the faith in knowing that things will come right. It may not come tomorrow, but they will come. You really have to be quite driven in knowing that the impact that you have, you may not have had it as much time with the person that you've lost, but you're able to have that time with the people who are here.
Wow.
Yeah, just encourage that to do that, because you often can be given the opportunity to leave a legacy, and you want to be able to do that. Now, for those who have passed, whether it be a mum or a dad or a brother, sister, or a child, they may not have been able to fulfill their full legacy, but you being present, you have the opportunity to do that as well.
Wow. Very wise, Danny. Sorry, Danny, if you don't mind, what was your daughter's name?
Eleonora.
How do you spell that?
E-L-E.
E-L-E-A-N-O-R-A. Oh, nice, beautiful. Thanks for that. And so, just wanted to ask you as well, Danny, because you even though in the midst of adversity and what had happened to you, and you're saying it was a bit of a dark time, or probably one of the darkest times in your life, but even in the midst of that, you're still here, you're still pushing through, you're still doing amazing things, you're still achieving, you're still accomplishing. But what is it? What right now? What fuels the passion for you now? What's the thing that kind of still continues to push you forward and still get you to get up in the morning, run and still establish these goals? What's the fuel now?
It's a couple of things. It's being happy. As simple as it sounds, it's being happy. And I guess my second, I can think about it, is our next generation.
Mm.
Our next generation is important for that, because we have a lot of lessons that we learned from our parents, our ancestors, you know, and we often talk about breaking the cycle, or making sure that past mistakes don't happen again. But I think it's important to empower our next generation and give them enough tools, because as society and years go on, that the landscape changes pretty fast. And if you look at what our youth go through today, it's not easy. It's not easy. They get so much resourcing, but they need a lot more care around them, and a lot more direction, and a lot more tools to cope with that, to do that. So, which is why, you know, in the program that I run at Auckland Rugby, you know, it's about planting those seeds for them, for those young ones to live a purposeful life, and to be good husbands, good wives, you know, good fathers, good people. Because when you often surround yourself with good people, you tend to make a lot better decisions too, about that as well.
That's cool. That's cool. Because I know, besides having no fathers or no father figures in the picture, Danny, what do you see? What do you think is the common thread or common theme you kind of gauge with these young men that you're working with? What do you think is some of the issues that our young men are facing in this day and age?
It's the belonging, and it's the wanting to belong to something. And I think also it's the role of what a male looks like, sounds like, acts like, because we see it on media, we see it in our society, we see it through our past experiences, but they don't necessarily tell you how you need to be. Because if I think about my father, he was a comedian, really funny guy, but poor decision making. You know, and you know, often the things that he would do wasn't quite right. When I think back about some of the things that he used to do, I think, man, I hope he didn't counsel me to do those same things as well. So you try and learn from those things, and then please don't repeat what you just did and doing next, because we're often perceived in a certain way. Being Pasifika, you know, we often perceived in a certain way that we should be this certain way, but it's not always the case. Everyone's quite different. An example I can use is teaching, and I guess if any other teachers, Pacific teachers are out there, when you're a Pacific teacher and you go into a school, sometimes the perception is, man, you're good at arts. Oh, you're going to be the PE teacher. Oh, you have to be, you know, in charge of all of those things, which is awesome, because that's a given talent that all of our Pacifica people have. But we want to change the perception, so, man, you can lead the curriculum.
Wow.
You can be in leadership positions. You know, you can, you know, go through and be a principal. You can be all these things here. You know, to change that perception, that's what we do. You know, and being a male figure, you know, you can often be one that goes along for the ride and gets spoken to and think, okay, yep, that's how it should be. Or it's one that's, oh, hold on, my critical thinking tells me that's not quite right.
Nice.
Because you'll speak on my behalf, but you don't know what I know.
Nice.
That's so
Love
good.
it.
So cool, Danny. And it's true, Danny, like you said, you're a DP for the two schools, and even now you see a lot of our Pacific brothers. You got Beta Intermediate. Who's Bilu, Mr. Lopepe.
At Beta Intermediate, it's Jerry Lopepe, and KG Intermediate is Bilu Lopepe. So
yeah, the brothers, yeah.
Bilu and I went to Teachers College together.
Wow.
That's awesome. Did you ever face without getting you in trouble, you don't have to share, but did you ever face institutional racism or tokenism throughout your journey, and how do you encourage others to navigate through that space?
First answer is yes, and I say that respectfully. I say that respectfully in a way that It exists as much as people will either sugarcoat it or perceive it as being something different. It's there and it's prevalent, whether it be 30 years ago or whether it be today. It's there. It's there, and that's down to old mindsets and lack of education. Because the natural man in us, when we go through things like that, especially when it, speaking as a Pacifica male, the easiest default is to retaliate, to get angsty and then want to battle. What we should be doing is channeling that into educating them into understanding what it is that they're saying, what it is, and to call it out. Don't be afraid to call it out, okay? Because we can often think that certain majorities tend to make those decisions and tell you how it should be, but it's not.
Wow.
Yeah, the minority voice is always going to be there, and the minority voice is powerful. It's powerful because they have certain talents, they have certain traits, they have, a vast array of knowledge that can actually bless them. They can bless those naysayers, they can bless those ones that have that mindset, so that they can open up their minds to actually understanding that. They'll be better for it. If they don't, then that's on them.
Wow.
You just can't get caught into that, man, I'm just going to fight.
Yeah.
And once we've got to educate. I think that's the blessing that we have, that we do naturally, is that to educate.
That's so cool. Thanks for that, Us, because I'm that type of person that avoids those spaces because I know that I will get angry and then I'll call it out, but I'll call it out in the way where it's, what do you say? Is it because I'm brown? and then it just, I fight. But I'm learning that I gotta invite others into a conversation and we can see others eye to eye and that we're equal and our voices matter. So now that's cool. Thanks. Also, I feel like I learned something. I'm gonna take away some wisdom and apply it.
That's good, because it's funny because you don't want to be that person that's, I don't know whether you've experienced this, when you get a growling from your parents and you're angry and then you go into your room and close the door and start doing those. You don't want to be that guy. Like, okay, take it on board. Okay, cool. Yep. How can I rephrase that? How can I have that conversation to do that? Because there are parents do it out of love, until they hear it and understand it, then they'll know. Then they'll know how to do that as well.
I was wondering, Danny, can you give us an example when it happened, Danny, or tell up to you? So, like you're saying, was there some time when you felt like, oh man, I just want to grab this person by the neck, by the scruff of his neck, and just, well, how did you, like you were saying, how did you like call them out?
Yeah, I'm quite happy.
Tell us.
I'll give you a couple of examples of perception around that, and it was being at a school and having parent interviews, and then having the parents come through, and they come into the class, and then they're looking for the teacher, but you're standing there.
Oh, and I can imagine what school.
And they look at you like, oh, so yeah, just looking for the teacher. Is the teacher here? I said, oh, so I'm here. And then look at you like, oh, you're the teacher? And is that surprised a look?
Oh.
Is that anything? Okay, yes, I'm the teacher, and then you just talk to them and converse with them and do that. Then there's the staff room talk. That's when someone makes a remark or a comment that they think is quite funny, but it actually isn't, and it involves another person and either their ethnicity or their gender, and they start going, man, yeah, that's funny, and they start cracking up and they start going on. Things like that, yeah, I'm happy to call out.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm happy to call it out. Regardless of where it is. And it's not just with ourselves and the majority, it's even ourselves and our own.
Yeah.
Because that's important too, because if we get our backs up about, man, they're saying this, that makes them this, what are we? Are we doing the same thing? Are we respectful to all of our ethnicities as well?
Cool.
To do that.
Very wise, very wise. That's so cool. I can imagine that, Danny. I can imagine that person coming in for the parents interviewing saying, "Oh, where's the teacher?" You know what? I was just, it's just something strange happened in my mind. Like, I can imagine you saying, "Oh yeah, I'm the teacher," and then right at the end, no, actually, I'm the caretaker. Just and walk away. Wow.
Yeah, but and that's only because I guess depending on the generation and depending on what their viewpoint is of society, and how it should look like. So, you know, I often get said this to me when I say, "So where are you from?" Say, "Oh, I'm from Otara." I said, "What? But you don't speak like someone from Otara." And I think to myself, that has got to be the silliest thing I've ever heard. What does someone from Otara sound like? You know, and there's always that perception. I was thinking, man, you know, there's all these different perceptions that, you know.
How do you keep your cool in that, man? Because you know, when you take hit after hit after hit, it gets tiring.
Yeah.
And so the humility goes out the window, and then you start fighting. You know, you start you start fighting battles, and you waste your energy. But it just sounds like you've been able to keep your calm over the years and keep on educating. So, shucks, I'm quite inspired and encouraged by just some of the stuff you've shared, bro.
Yeah, that's really wise, Danny. I think, you know, and you're right. I think if you had kind of reacted in a different way or a negative way, it would have been like, oh yeah, we would justify. Yep, yeah, we need that. Yeah, we know that's how you guys or you people react. But very wise in terms of the young guys or teachers or Pacific teachers who are watching this, or Pacific men who are watching this, in terms of not even just teaching, but all around it.
Yeah.
How to respond instead of reacting. So very wise also. Well, that's a nugget.
Yeah, it's really, really important, because when you walk out your front door, you are challenged from the first step all the way until you go to work or go to school, all the way to come back. And that's the reality of being a minority. And being a minority, and it's, you know, you often challenge and often perceived in a certain way. And often when you react in a certain way, people are going to expect that from you.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to be. And then they start placing labels on you. And you never live up to those labels, because those labels don't define you.
Nice.
They'll just easier to throw those out.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder for them to get to know you and get to know who you are.
That's cool, man. I feel like we need to do a workshop now. Get Danny to talk about cultural competence.
The right way.
The right way, yeah. Because, you know, Pete, he had to change his last name so he could fit in. Like, when he asked me if I could come on mandate and over the phone, I'd go, "Oh, Peter Wilson." And then when I met him, I was going, "Oh, Peter, I didn't know you were Samoan." Nah. I'm sorry. That's a bad joke. Oh, that's awesome, bro. So in light of what we've been speaking about and your journey and just your giving back to the next generation and sort of being that gatekeeper and being, you know, fighting through some of these perceptions that we have on our people, and especially from where we're from, what is your hope for the next generation, South Auckland, and yeah, what's the legacy you want to leave behind?
If anything, it's to ensure that the next generation does come through. Don't lose the core value of where they've come from. Regardless of what situation that they're in, what occupation, what journey they have, don't lose the core values, because those core values not only humble you, but they stabilize you in doing that. How you deliver yourself in in those areas that you are passionate about and have talent in. That's important too. But always, and I emphasize, always take someone along. It's easy to lead, but it's even better when you're taking people with you as well.
Nice. I like that. That's so cool. Otherwise, you're just going for a walk by yourself, Danny? If you didn't take anyone
Pretty
along.
much.
Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah.
So true. So
Take our whole team with ourselves.
yeah, you
Yep.
never look behind. Yeah.
Definitely share that love. Always, because we always never make it about ourselves.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So cool, Danny.
And just on top of that, what was the legacy you wanted to leave behind us?
Probably my legacy, if I'm really thinking about it, is that I've been able to impact someone in some way to not only be the better version of themselves, but to be someone that someone's going to go up to 30 years down the line and know that, man, a very good man, taught me this, I've taken this lesson on board, and I'm going to share that. And I share that with love, I share that with humility, and I share that with purpose.
Wow.
Thank you, brother. And just as we, because we're weary of time and of your time also, but as we come near the end of our Talanoa, if you could give a sentence or a phrase or of inspiration to impart to our viewers, like what would it be?
It's something that's been on my mind probably the last couple of weeks too, when I think about it, and it's be where your feet are. So when you be where your feet are, you're not looking too far ahead, and you're not reflecting too much of the past, but you're being present in the now. So being where your feet are, you know that you serve more purpose by being present in your family, in your workplace, in your studies, and you're living in the now. Because often when you look too far ahead, you can set yourself up for disappointment if it doesn't go right. And sometimes if you reflect too much on the past, then you don't change as the person itself. So definitely be where your feet are.
Man, love that. I love that because we're living in a time where a lot of influencers are telling us, grind, set your goals, set your dreams, and we look too far ahead. And so that's powerful. I just love it because it keeps us stable, it keeps us present and centers our thoughts. So thank you for that, Us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danny. Appreciate it. Also, obviously we're conscious for time, but man, bro, he had some heartstrings. Really appreciate it. Also, we really appreciate the work you're doing with our people, because I know the Auckland sports is not just with the boys, but also with our female, with the girls as well, is it?
Yeah, you've got to empower them too. I was just thinking, I'll share this. Sorry.
Man.
Go.
I was thinking about just your mantra around refine, unlock, and taking charge. You probably didn't know this, but I'll share it with you. So I'm also a bishop. So I'm bishop of a ward of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Whoa.
And I think about the platforms that we get given to be able to inspire and encourage. When I think about our church families, regardless of what denomination you are, it's important that we utilize those platforms to really seek out inspiring our next generation and our people, because our belief systems are important ourselves as well to do that. And I know that thinking about the mantra of being able to refine, if you're not refining, man, you're just declining. Man, you've got to unlock, because why we unlock is because there's a lot of things to untap as well. And definitely, you got to take charge, because if you don't, no one else is going to do it for you. Always uplifting, or we might find ourselves drifting. So,
Danny, man.
we're there for each other. So, definitely appreciate this platform to share. I know that this platform has been used by many others to share as well. So if I can be a part of the journey, truly grateful to you both as well. So I know that where your heart is, what your vision is, and it's not just for the now, it's definitely for the future, and to do that as well. So appreciate you both. Love you both very much as well, and just grateful to be here with you both.
Wow.
Salute you, Danny. Thank you so much for that. That's too much, bro. So Danny, just before we kind of wrap it up, because we always gift our guests, we give them a gift, and so always do a bit of a caricature of our guests. And I know you're a blues man, and I love the blues, 100% blues, Auckland. And so I thought I'd just do a quick caricature of you.
Wow! Oh man!
Hey.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. So hey, so hopefully when the alert levels go down, Danny, Charles and I would love to kind of swing by and drop it off and give it to you, bro. But also, if hopefully if it does go down, or when it goes down, we'd love to have you in the studio as well for part 2. And so, but also thank you so much for that, and thank you for sharing your heart as well, and for being quite intimate with your sharing. Truly appreciate it, bro. And very, very powerful, a lot of gold nuggets tonight. So thank you very much. Also, Taitiri love also. Bless you as well, man.
No, thank you. And honestly, when the alert levels go down, even going into the new year, we'd love to have you guys come out to some of the games.
Oh, mean.
Oh, mean.
Oh, yes.
So I got you both, man.
Oh, thanks.
Even the boys too, So if you want to, we'd definitely love to have you guys come out to the games.
Awesome, Danny. Appreciate that. Oh man, awesome, man. Thank you so much for that. But Danny, is there anyone that you could think of that would be that you could want to call out that you think would be ideal for the show, or to have something to share?
Yeah, I know that Pastor Joseph had suggested Kevin.
Yeah.
I would suggest his older brother, Luke Mellon.
Yes. Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome, man. Yeah, Luke, if you're watching this, hey, the man's called you out, so it'd be awesome to get a hold of you, or we might try and get a hold of you as well. So, Luke, we appreciate hearing back from you. Otherwise, Danny, bless you also. Thank you so much. Charles, you want to say anything? Last words?
Yeah. Just quickly, just want to honor you, Danny, for the work that you do, and thank you for investing into the next generation. You're right; it's such a tough generation and tough issues that they're facing, and we need pioneers and role models to really lead the way, because there's very few. And so, just thank you for being that person for our community also. And I look forward to catching up. I'm so grateful and honored to have made this connection. And I can't wait to see what's next.
Awesome. No, thank you, boys, and thank you, brothers. I guess being on here, it's official, Brothers for Life. Okay, so if you need me, I'm here for you. Whatever you need.
Oh, bless you, brother.
Thank you. Peace and my love to your families as well during this time as well. We may be uncertain times, but it's one thing we're certain of. It's definitely our love for our families too. So be safe. And just thank you again for allowing me to be on here too. Appreciate you.
No, thank you so much for your time as well. So we'll give you the last word, but if you can do that mantra again, Danny.
Yes. Grateful for being on here. Grateful for the opportunity to share, my story, but just to remember to refine, unlock, and definitely take charge. Appreciate you.
Mandate.